episode of season 3 of Baseball Books and Banter with me, your host, Nicole Aslin. Oh, crowd goes wild. Still not sponsored, so if you know anybody, feel free to sponsor me. For those that follow me on all my socials, I am nominated for a Women in Podcasting Award. Did I nominate myself? Yes. Does it make it any less deserving? I don't think so. So go to my links on my Facebook, my Instagram. Well, no, I don't think I put it there yet. My Blue Sky. I'll get it on my website, or just reach out to me and I can send you the link. So vote for me in the authors and books category. We'll see what happens. This episode is actually really fun. I talk about it a little in, I think, the beginning of the podcast, the interview. But Zach Ford is a baseball author who just wrote a book called Called Up, which is a collection of stories from major leaguers and when they learned they were going to be playing in the big leagues, which lately has been a lot. You see it on the internet. You see them calling their parents or getting the phone call, or in the Clubhouse series that we talk about a little bit on Netflix. You see them getting told by the coach where they're going to go and just how much emotion that brings up. It was fascinating. I met, quote unquote, Zach through a Facebook friend, James Latoile, who lives out west. He's a mystery author. He has corgis, so love already. And he posted that he was at an event where these two baseball writers were at, and I was like, heck yeah, that's right up my alley. So I'm going to try to reach out to the other guy too, but Zach was gracious enough to come on the podcast and kind of talk about his lore. He's a Giants fan, but that's okay because when I lived in Monterey, we supported the Giants because they were close, but we were still at core Red Sox family. But before we get into all that, as always, it's time for things that I'm obsessed with. I just got back from the Malice Domestic conference in Bethesda, Maryland. Had a super fun time. I wasn't on a panel this year, so it was kind of more loosey-goosey. Could just walk around, go to panels. Met so many people from the Cozy Mystery Party Facebook group. So if you're a fan of authors and writing and cozy mysteries, go join it ASAP, because it's honestly, they are the nicest group of people. They were so friendly. And they were so supportive. So shout out to all my new friends from that group. One of the women who I happened to meet actually works for the same company I do, which is Two Bananas. And I'm sorry, Fern is kind of being bossy and nosy because it's finally sunny out here in Massachusetts on the weekend. So she desperately wants to go outside. Excuse me. So she's kind of up my bum trying to be like, let's go outside. Except the only thing she does when she goes outside is jump off the deck and run around in the grass. So for me, yes, it's sunny and beautiful out, but it's also kind of hot. And as for those that know, I don't like the heat. That's why when I was down at Malice Domestic, I stayed in the hotel most of the time. But yeah, so next year, I'm already signed up to go next year. I sold about, I think 6 books, which is pretty awesome. And I'm really excited about that. Met so many other great authors. I have a pile down on the floor. If you go to my website, I have a wrap up of the weekend and the stack of books that I got, including from friend Lauren Silberman, Daphne Silver, who's been on the podcast. And then I met a lovely French woman who now has a series, and she's super cool. So my favorite part of her, not my favorite part of her, she was delightful the whole way around. But her bookmarks were pictures of a baguette with her info on the back, and I was like, you had me at baguette. Like, that was my life. Another random thing I just heard, I was out running some errands and I just came back in, that, well, it's bad news first, then good news. So with the Red Sox, we're mid, we're fine, we're 2 above 500, we're not the worst, we're not the best. It's better than being last. But last night, my guy, Tristan Casas, got injured pretty severely, had to be stretchered off the field. He was conscious and awake and everything, but he apparently tore a ligament in his knee. Well, the gentleman they're calling up to play today is Abraham Toro, which I just found out on the radio is French Canadian. So shout out to my French Canadian family. For those that know, Aslan is a French Canadian name. My grandfather used to say cabbage head in French, Quebecois, if you will. And I have a ton of family still up there. I don't know if they listen, but if they do, bonjour. And I get to see them at family events and stuff in New Hampshire, which is super fun. I think next year the family reunion is up in Quebec, so I'm really excited to check that out. But anyway, so Abraham Toro, French Canadian, also cool. Other things I'm obsessed with. I met a friend for coffee yesterday. When I say coffee, transatlantic, I mean it's from Starbucks because that's what we do. And next to the green juice Starbucks, there's now a store called the Green Bunt. Bunt cakes, round cakes. So I had to try it. So not two, I had one. It was a funfetti cake. So not to roast people out before it was so nice and not overly sweet, which I know sometimes icing can get overly sweet. The other flavor I got was cookies and cream Oreo. So that's in the fridge because I like to eat cake cold, which is a thing, I guess. So I'm excited to try that one. So that's another thing I'm obsessed with. The third thing I'm sort of obsessed with right now is at night when I can't sleep, I put on the Dateline 24/7 Sirius XM channel after all the baseball is done. And for some reason, I only make it about 15 minutes before I'm knocked out. So apparently murder mysteries and Keith Morrison's voice are like meditation for me. So that's something, if you're into that, it's something to listen to. If you're not into it, then don't listen to it. It's fine. And also that's about it right now. Like that's kind of still in conference coming down mode. So like reading books, trying to get back into my writing, which I'll talk about after. And yeah, so without further ado, listen to Zach talk about how he got these interviews, how some surprised him, his family connection, which I meant to bring up, but so much limited time in the free Zoom. His great uncle played in Boston or for the Pacific League and then played in Boston, never really got on the field. But I wanted to shout out Joyce Tremmel, who is a friend of the program, I guess, friend of mine. So by default, she's friend of the program. We see each other at Malice Domestic every year, every time we go. I think it was her great uncle or great grandfather. Somebody in her family played baseball in Hartford, and his name was Zips. And I said, okay, you got to come on the podcast, even if you don't have a book to talk about, because I want to know more about Zips. And then I met another gentleman at Malice named Adrian. Well, his pen name's Adrian Andover, and his book's coming out in September. But his uncle, or again, a great uncle or somebody in the family, grew his beard out for like 20 years before the Pirates won a World Series. And he was in the newspaper and like all sorts of family lore about it. So we'll probably talk a little bit about that when he comes on, but stay tuned for that in September. But without further ado, here's Zach. Welcome back to Baseball Books and Banter with me, Nicole. And today's guest, I was just telling him before we signed on, a mystery writer friend from the West Coast actually posted that he was at the book launch. So I was like, yeah, got to have the baseball guy on. So Zach Ford, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
So tell people a little bit about yourself and kind of how you came into this world of now a baseball author.
Well, I've always been interested in baseball, and more than anything else, I'm interested in the human interest stories behind the scenes of baseball. And I grew up in a divided extended family. As you could probably tell, I'm wearing a Giants hat and I have a Dodgers blanket. Oops, I
I
always
hate
forget
doing
that.
that. I never get the
That
pointing
was
right.
actually my grandma's lap blanket before she passed. So I ended up getting that. That's something that is displayed in my office. But everybody knows I'm a Giants fan and they see that, they think I'm crazy or I'm like I have like mixed personalities. No, it's just a divided family.
Yeah. And
Uh,
it's
but
sentimental more than anything.
yeah,
You're not
so
cheering
that's
for
that's
them.
that. I got to get that out of the way
Yeah.
first. But as far as the book goes, I think a lot of us see these virtual videos each year of somebody calling up their mom after a half dozen, 7, 8 years in the minor leagues and saying, "Hey, mom, I'm going to the show." And I did a little bit of digging around, and I found that there was nobody else who had done a book like that before. So I figured, why not be the one that tackle it? And I had wanted to do a baseball book my entire life, and I, just started reaching out. Believe it or not, a lot of the guys I found on social media type in
Oh,
so like MLB alum or
yeah.
former major leaguer, and then you become friends with a few or follow a few. The algorithms start popping up and just started branching out from there. So got to talk to quite a few ball players. There's 109 in the book, and they talk about their major league call-ups and debuts.
Um, yes, and I think now that we're in the age of social media, we see more of the stories. But what I found fascinating, I didn't get through the whole book because I was like, work, life, blah. But
Yeah.
I have it saved on my work computer, and I read it during downtimes. Don't tell anybody. I don't think any of my coworkers listen to this podcast, so it's fine. But I loved all the like the older stories, the '60s, the '70s, the '80s. But then again, I skipped forward and read the Red Sox ones because obviously I'm a Red Sox fan. So I was like, I got to read the stories about my guys. Um, a lot of it's still pretty similar. Like there's for every story that there's like a crazy, crazy story. They're still doing that, except now it's on social media and you can see it. And so I love
Mhm.
the idea that the more things change, the more things stay the same. And I
Mhm.
think that was a really fun thread through the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that also, it just, I think that all of us that picked up a glove or threw a ball or swung a bat when we were kids had that dream,
Mhm.
regardless of how realistic it was or not. I mean,
Right.
I had that dream when I was a kid and I batted probably about 200 in Little League, right? I mean, I still have that dream and I'm nearing 47 years old.
Right.
So, um, obviously, I've come to the realization it's not going to
It's
happen
not
for
going to
me.
happen. Oh no.
No, probably not. I think I've accepted that. But um, it's the sequence of a young boy or man, just kind of reaching those levels and then having that dream that drives them throughout their childhood and young adulthood, and then finally reaching that pinnacle of their profession. Um, and that's it's been the same thing, same dream, obviously in different there's different pathways to achieving that dream, but still that same dream, beyond or before my era,
Yeah.
down to the I think the earliest debut is 1961 in the book, and it goes all the way to 2018, and there's definitely some common themes throughout.
Yeah. I think what it'll be, what I think if you continue to do this, I know your next book is a little bit different.
Yeah.
But if you come across more, I'd be interested to see how the COVID year kind of affected minor league baseball coming to the pros. Did that really screw up some people's development? Now, here in New England, the Red Sox have a really good trio down at AAA. So we're just waiting. And it's been a day because I'm still waiting to hear about what's happening with Tristan Casas's knee. So we don't know if
Mhm.
somebody's going to get called up. We don't know. And luckily, again, with the social media, we're seeing them in real time kind of get those notices. And then you see their parents in the stands and just realizing that dream did not, it's not a really left turn, but was there a story that you heard that you listened to that surprised you?
I wouldn't say necessarily surprised me. What's interesting is, a lot of people will ask me, okay, well, what are, your favorite stories or and, admittedly, based upon my age, I kind of gravitated to late 80s, early 90s and Giants. But the reality is I would talk to these guys. I interviewed folks over the course of almost 3 years,
Oh,
and I would hear a story and I'd be like, oh, wow, that's a great story. That's one of the best I've ever heard. And then 2 weeks later, I'd talk to another guy and, oh, this is a great story. And it continued on that, like
yeah,
throughout the whole path. Um, obviously, there are different ways in which things change over the years, alluding to our, last question. But like, say, for example, nowadays, guys might hear hey, get a text message, just say,
Yeah.
hey, come into my office. I got the news. Jerry Royce, who's the longest tenured player in the book, 22 major league seasons, he actually found out he was getting called up to the big leagues because he got a registered letter in the mail.
Yeah, I don't think they
I
do
mean,
that anymore.
obviously that would never happen nowadays,
Yeah, right.
right? But that's how he got the news. I mean, oftentimes there's different players that get called in the manager's office, and sometimes it's just a business, hey, just to let you know you're getting called up to the big leagues. This is what's going to happen. Sometimes it's, hey, you missed this sign.
Mm.
I'm really mad at you. Blah 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 blah. By the time you're going to get called up tomorrow, and you can't have that happen. Blah 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 blah. And the player's like, wait, what did you mix in
What was
with?
that in the middle there?
Yeah,
What do you say now? Yeah, I would.
yeah.
That would be the anxious going mind, and then you're like, wait, what happened? Um, and I think, yeah, and that I think it's fascinating because not a lot. I mean, like you said, the dream is to be an MLB. But a lot of the guys kind of know that it's not the 100% realistic gonna happen thing. And a lot of them are okay with that. And so that it really does become a surprise when they do get called up and they're like, oh, SHIT. Now I gotta like go. I love the one story where the guy's like, yeah, I played in front of like 5,000 people at the minor league park, but then I come out of the Cubs tunnel and it's everybody's cheering and I cannot imagine. Like,
Yeah,
I,
yeah, that would
I,
be fascinating.
just me walking into the library sometimes is like, there's too many people, gotta go. And so I can't imagine, and then feeling that pressure, just
Mm.
maybe that's why I never went pro with anything. Not that I played baseball well. I played t-ball and it was bad. I was the girl in the outfield with the butterflies and like, look at the grass. And just very excited because I had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle glove, me and my brother. And I think it's when we lived in California, actually. And we played for the Red Sox in California because my dad was the coach. So he got to pick the name.
The Red Sox were the first little league team I played for too.
Yeah, see, maybe that was just they're like kids love socks. Let's just go. They're either white or they're red. Um,
Yeah.
Speaking of that, I did like in your introduction kind of how you came into this and that you have a family connection. Can you talk about that a
Mm.
little bit? And
Absolutely.
Boston connection.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So my great uncle was a, professional baseball player from the late 30s to early 50s. And he was involved in the old Pacific Coast League, which was basically a little bit lower than the major leagues, but it was essentially the highest level. It wasn't essentially, it was the highest level of baseball out on the Pacific Coast. And after the 1939 season, he was actually purchased by the Red Sox in the same deal as Dominic DiMaggio. Obviously, Dominic DiMaggio ended up having a great career with the Red Sox, but he was considered a fairly large prospect. And obviously, World War II happened. He came back after the war. He went to spring training with the Sox in 1946 and made the team out of camp. 1946 was one of the rare times in that particular era where the Red Sox were extremely good.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
the services of a near 32-year-old rookie who had spent a good majority of the last 5 years in Europe were not needed.
Right.
So after a few weeks, he got released. He got picked up by the crosstown Boston Braves. And then the same thing happened to him about a week later. He got released before getting into a game. And that story of him in, I guess you could say, baseball purgatory is definitely one of the inspirations for this book.
Yeah.
I wish I had talked to him a little bit more about those few weeks, but I knew that there was a little bit of a sense of disappointment
Yeah.
behind not being an official big leaguer and being a
Yeah.
phantom major leaguer per se. And that was also one of the things too that got me interested in so many of the human interest sides baseball stories because I'd go to his reunions and I kind of befriended a lot of his old teammates
That's
and
awesome.
opponents. So it gave me a perspective of baseball players beyond just the game.
Like you said, the
Uh,
human that they are
yeah,
just dudes playing baseball. Like they're not these superhuman. Well, they are because they can play a sport that not many people can play, but
yeah,
that they have lives. They have. I haven't watched all of it yet because it's just just can't do it yet. The Clubhouse on Netflix, the Red
I
Sox
haven't
last year.
started that. I'm embarrassed to say I need
No,
to.
I've only watched one episode because I just can't. Because last season was like triggering. But there is some of that too, where you see like Tyler O'Neill with his wife and his like 3 month old baby, and then they have to do the dad stuff, and then they go to the park. Or Byron Bale, who is having visa issues with his family, so he's like in two places. And so I think people forget, and I think that's why I like living in this time, is because there is more access to that human side. The Jaron Duran stuff with the suicide
Yeah.
attempt and the mental health illness. You're like, oh, they're human beings. Like, I know I get mad and be like, why did you strike out again? But maybe it's just sometimes I spell a word wrong. So we're all bad at our jobs sometimes. Like, it's just, I think that's why I like books like this. I had on my podcast a couple months ago a gentleman named Kevin Hurd who wrote about no hitters. And it was a similar situation where he would interview either the pitcher or the catcher, and it was the human side of that. Yeah, we talked about it last night about what pitches we were going to throw, and then we just went to bed or went to the pub, and then da da da. So I think by opening that curtain a little bit more, it makes I think it makes people realize a little bit more, and you get away. And I think that's the difference between older generations, who there was that space between you and your favorite player, but now the space
Hmm.
is like this much. And for those that are listening, it's small. If you're not watching on YouTube. So I think that's really good. I love some of the stories. One of my favorites, again, because I've only read like the first like three, the 60s through the 80s, and the the birthday cake prank, or the cake prank.
Oh, the Bobby Gritch one. Yeah.
Yeah, where he was like, "Oh, somebody brought me a cake. That's so nice." And they're like, "Get closer, get closer." And he's like, "What? That's weird." And it was a sour cream frosted cake. And he's
Something
like,
like that.
"Yeah."
Yeah.
He's like, "Did it once, never did it again, but did it to every guy after." So I just love,
Absolutely.
especially if it's a prank that like nobody gets hurt. That's the kind of prank I like.
Yeah.
Like in Practical Jokers, nobody really gets hurt.
Hmm.
Still don't prank me, because I will, if I have a cake and it's not a cake, I will punch you in the throat. Um, uh, so we'll talk a little bit. So I know I was looking on your website, and you now that I know your great uncle is in the Pacific Coast League, it makes sense that you worked for the Historical Society, worked or currently, or
I would say no, it's not really
like
work. It's just
volunteer.
it's a quarterly newsletter that I participate in.
Okay.
That's it. So I mean, all of my baseball activities are 100% hobby.
Right.
Um, and one of the things I have learned over the last year and a half since this book has been released is people. I mean, I don't want to make light of publishing a book or releasing a
Oh yeah.
book being not an achievement, but a lot of people just automatically will assume that you're this wealthy. They don't understand the difference between like a David Halberstam and a Zach Ford, and
Right.
I'm like, this
Right.
guy is like this level,
Yeah.
and I'm not even
They're like,
off the
"Oh,
ground.
you're a mystery author like James Patterson." I'm like, "Oh God, no. Like, I have a day job, and like definitely not James Patterson." I feel like I talk a lot
Yeah.
of crap about James Patterson, but that kind of thing where people think, "Oh, you're an author, so you're doing this glamorous stuff." And it's like, no, 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 no. This
No,
is,
I'm still in the red.
yeah, right, exactly. Like, I still got bills, I got a mortgage, don't worry about it. But yeah, I think that, and I think, but now you've got the bug. Now that you've published one, are you like, I got more ideas? I know we'll talk a little bit about the next one then, which is next up, which that was
Hmm.
unintentional, about what happens after you leave
Hmm.
the big leagues. And I know, because again, as a Red Sox fan, I mean, half of our players are now analysts on Nesson or on the radio broadcast. So have you started that process of culling stories? Have you kind of thought about kind of where you're going with it, and when is it
Yeah,
coming?
I'm actually probably more than about halfway through that
Nice.
particular project. Um, and this will be about the post-playing careers of players. Because a lot of people, a lot of fans have this misconception that ball players could just sail off in the sunset. They have everything taken care of. They don't have to work. Especially if the guys in my book,
Mm,
where it may have been, they're up and down from the minors for a while. They're not making a huge amount of money, or at least, they may make, some substantial paychecks
sure.
from their big league. Overall, through the course of the year, we factor the minor leagues, they're not making that
Yeah.
much. And then all of a sudden they're 30, 35 years old and they're trying to figure out what that next project. So a lot of them will be the same guys from the first book, and it'll include guys that went to the big leagues, guys that did not go to the big leagues, guys that stayed in baseball, and guys that moved on to completely different categories, different professions. It's funny that you actually referenced Nesson. There are actually two guys in the book
Oh,
that started doing work for Nesson after their
okay.
career. There's Bob Tewksbury,
Yep.
who would have done that in the early 2000s, and then David McCarty, who did that a
Oh,
few
yeah.
years after. Yeah.
Yep. I know those names well. Um, and not to be like weird, but like so I'm working, we just got a new, well, it's an old minor league team, used to be the collegiate league. Now they've merged with the Frontier League, and I think they're Frontier League now, but it's their revival season, the Brockton Rocks. And
Huh.
I live like 10 minutes away from it. And Jim Rice bought it. So if I talk to
Cool.
Jim at the opening day, because I'm me and a friend who writes baseball romances are going to set up a table there, I'll put a little plug in and be like, hey, you should talk to this guy about your experience, because now he's a probably one of the best Nesson analysts, him and Jonathan Papelbon together. So yeah, I'll throw your name out there because we're like gonna be buddies, of course. He's gonna love me. With the people that you've had so far, is there a career that's like a completely left turn from baseball?
I mean, there's definitely some that are very unique. Some of the earlier guys that I
Yeah.
talked with, one of the guys, his first job out of baseball was actually selling cemetery plots, believe
Oh
it or not.
goodness.
That's a unique one. But if
That's
you think about it, I mean, that's a job that's always going to be in demand,
yeah.
right? Um,
And
there's
it's not
another guy.
cheap.
He
So
actually it overlapped the last couple of years where he was kind of seeing the writing on the wall and did it a little bit during the off season. But a guy went into cutting large trees
hmm.
and land clearing. So after his baseball career, he started cutting large trees and ended up creating his own tree cutting and land
Wow.
clearing business. There are definitely some guys that stayed in baseball and became baseball lifers per se. Whether it be coaching or scouting. Um, but I wanted to make sure that there was a good mix
Sure.
of guys that stayed in the game at various levels or just chose completely different careers. And it's kind of interesting. It seems like some of the ball players who um, had mild success at a big league level, or actually even
Hmm.
didn't reach the big league level, often had actually decent amount of success as entrepreneurs after baseball.
Interesting.
And I had a couple of ball players tell me, it's like, hey, look, baseball's prepared me for failure.
Yeah.
Like as a hitter, I was lucky to only fail 7 out of 10 times,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So going into, business afterwards, I had that kind of mindset that I just have to keep working, keep hustling. And, a lot of the guys, that became successful entrepreneurs kind of articulated that in one way or another, that just through the hustle of baseball and the work ethic that it gave them, and the acceptance that it's not always going to work, actually allowed them to take more chances in business, which they understood their percentages and were able to succeed afterwards.
And also true for publishing. I got a lot of rejections before I published my
Yeah,
books, but now we're good. Um, a little bit about, so did you self-publish, or did you get a publisher, or how did
I got
that?
it published. Yeah, I
Nice.
got it through McFarland.
Okay.
Uh, Harlan does a lot of baseball books. That was a and met one of the editors at a baseball conference, the Society for American Baseball Research conference a few years ago, and just kind of went back and forth with one of the editors there for a couple months, and
Awesome.
eventually said, okay, well, do you want me to send a contract over? And I said,
Yeah.
yes. Um, and then, just through promoting my first book, had more discussions with him. And, over the last, I think I finally put together a kind of a informal kind of book proposal for him about a month and a half ago. And then he said, okay, well, do you want one for next up? Yes.
Yeah.
So.
That's
Yeah, I mean
awesome.
that's it. That said, it's a relatively small publisher. I'm
Yeah.
not, it's not something that required a book agent.
Right.
It's not something that's necessarily going to be widespread. So it's not like as we, alluded to earlier.
It's not your
I'm not
retirement,
going to have
no.
my own in cap at Barnes and
Right.
Noble, and I've accepted that. Yeah,
You're not, it's not your retirement. Let's put it that way.
no,
That's not going to help
it's
you. Yeah,
definitely a
same.
hobby, something to kind of to scratch that itch.
To be like, yeah, now I'm a published author. Now you could, and now no one can take that away. You could say, I'm a published author, which I think is really cool. Like, even if, well, that, and I don't know if you've gone to events and people just come up and be like, oh, I really enjoyed it. Like, that to
Yeah,
me is the best. And you're like, oh my God, because I enjoyed writing it. So I'm really glad somebody else liked it too. Because I
yeah.
don't know if it's the same in the baseball world. Probably you think it's imposter syndrome at its best. Like, you just think everybody hates me and nobody likes me. And so when you get that one person, and that's probably, I don't think that's all that dissimilar in a baseball. You strike out 3 times and get one hit, and you're like, everybody thinks I'm a loser when that one
Hmm.
maybe won the game or something. And so I think I think people don't realize how much creative jobs and job baseball jobs are sports jobs really are kind of intersected that way, because you need an agent
Hmm.
sometimes, you don't need an agent sometimes, and then there's all the money stuff, which I don't worry about. So you mentioned SABR, which is the
Hmm.
Society for American Baseball Research, and it's kind of funny because I actually so for little not to be weird, inside baseball stuff, guys, is we were supposed to meet last week, and I ended up at a well, I didn't end up, I bought it, I went to a conference, and so I was like, oh my God, can we reschedule? And Zach was gracious enough to reschedule. But a couple I met there run cozymystery.com, and her husband actually is a member of SABR, and he was like, you should look into it some more. And so I'm not a big analytic person. That's a lot of, yeah, I was like, that's a lot of math. And but he said they have a really nice publishing kind of, they have a lot of stuff that's not math and numbers.
Yeah, I think there is a misconception of SABR
Yeah.
and Society for American Baseball Research that they're focused on analytics,
Yeah.
statistics, that side of baseball. And there's definitely a large aspect to that, but there are so many other opportunities within the Society for American Baseball Research that, baseball nerds such as myself that like the human interest side can still be involved in the game and socialize with people that may not necessarily lean towards stats.
Yeah.
And I've never been a stats guy. I've always enjoyed the human interest behind the scenes type baseball stories. And there's still plenty to pique my interest that's available within the organization.
That's good to know, because I know they have conferences every now and then. So maybe you should sign up to sell your book at a conference, and maybe we can conference meet. Have you ever been to Cooperstown, or have you been to Cooperstown yet?
I was in Cooperstown about a little less than 3 years ago.
Okay.
It was actually before that conference where I met the publisher, the editor.
Oh, awesome.
I did a 1,600 mile road trip over the
Ooh.
course of about 4 days, where I started off with visiting my brother in the DC area, went up to New York, went to Boston and Fenway, went to Cooperstown, went to Niagara Falls, which isn't baseball,
Yeah, but
but still Pittsburgh, and then back over to Baltimore.
oh, nice.
Uh, so yeah, I was able to sneak in Cooperstown that particular trip. That was the first time. It was something I wanted to do since I was a kid, and I
Yeah.
was what, 45 or so when I finally got the opportunity.
Yeah, I went, it might have been my 39th birthday, so a couple of years. It was, it was right after the pandemic was like pandemicing. It was like the year after. It was like 21, maybe 22, but I took myself in September just,
Yeah.
and it's great. Like it's great. It was perfect.
I love doing those things by myself. That way I just do everything at my
And you
own
know what? Like
pace.
I know I
Yeah.
wanted to go to see David Ortiz's shoes. I don't have anybody up my butt. Like, oh, but we want to see like Mariano Rivera's, and I'm like, no, 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 no. I got a thing I want to see, and I'm going to see that.
Yeah. And
And
you kind of have to be like that focused in Cooperstown because
yeah,
there's so much stuff.
so
You see,
much.
yeah.
And oh my god, I cried during the opening video that they show you, and all the players like, oh man, whatever. That's just because I'm an emotional wreck. And I bought myself a baseball bat that had my book's name on it, and I was like, oh, author, so
Nice.
that I could have
Yes.
it. It's in my living room, and it's also my security system. So if you're listening, you're gonna get beaten by a bat if you break into my house. Um, but before I do want to, before we wrap up, obviously next up is the book that's next up.
Hmm.
That's going to be your tagline. Next up is next up.
Yeah.
So you're halfway through that. Where can people find you out in the world or just online, all that good stuff?
If they go to zachford.com, they'll be able to find all the different stuff on my different projects. They just have to remember that Zach is spelled weird, ZAKFORD.com. But if they do a Google search for called up Zach Ford,
And I'll put the
things
link.
will.
I'll put the
Yeah.
link in the summary so
Oh,
people can
perfect.
just click it.
Yeah.
Um, and I almost forgot. I do usually ask people, do you have any book recommendations for the audience?
Yeah, I mean, a few of the books that I would recommend. My favorite baseball book, I think, of all time is The Glory of Their Times by Larry Ritter. It's a collection of ball player stories from the turn of the last century. Uh, we talked about also, I had referenced David Halberstam's name before, but he actually have this here, The Teammates,
Uh,
which is just a
I got it
I
right here.
love this. I love this book because it's all behind the scenes. It talks about their careers and stuff, but more than anything else, it's about the friendship
Hmm.
that they had. And then there's also a reference to my great uncle and
I was going to
one of
ask because
yeah,
I was
because
like,
he
I
was
have
purchased.
that book. I have the Summer of
Yeah,
49, which is another David Halpstrom book now that I'm looking at. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
I got all his books apparently. Who knew?
But those would be probably my two favorite, probably amongst my two favorite baseball books. Yeah.
That's good to know. I haven't read it yet. It's in my pile of baseball books to read
It's
along
a great one because you could
with,
crank it out in a week
yeah,
pretty
it's
easily.
like a
Very
snail.
quick. It's not overly it's
Yeah.
not too long. Very
Well, we have
engaging.
we have the sun for the first time on a Saturday in like months. So I've already read at one lake, and now I'm gonna go read in my backyard. I'm like, oh my god, nobody move. The sun is out. Um, and speak. I meant to say in the beginning, we were talking about divided loyalties. Just this week, I found my brother gave me all the pictures from our one of our. I was gonna say one of my houses. That sounds so bougie. My mom's old house. Um,
Yeah.
it's fine. And dramatically, when I was like one or two, there's a picture of me in a Yankees hat, and I posted it on TikTok, and I'm like, oh no, what happened? And then I found out that her father was a Yankee fan, so I was like, okay, thank God we went the good way with my grandpa Aslan going the
Yeah.
not the evil
I don't know why
empire.
my dad chose the Giants, but he chose the Giants and it
Yeah,
passed along to me. I'm glad to be on the good side.
same. And I was thinking, I checked the standings right before we came on to be like, how is he going to be depressed? Is he going to be happy? And I saw they're like the Red Sox. They're kind of like mid, and they're there, and they're win when they need to sometimes, and lose when they lose.
Yeah.
So we're mid, yay! But
Yeah.
hopefully, I think I watched a TikTok video with Chapman where he just wanted to know if the Warriors won last night, and they didn't. So he was a little upset about that as well. But thank you again for joining and being so flexible with the time. And I will put your link below for people to click, click, click. And when next up is out, I want to be on your list. Hopefully, I'm still doing podcasts then. And if you're ever East Coast, I know a girl at Fenway Park who can get you free beer. Shout out to Peggy.
Nice.
So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. I hope you have a great day.
how cool. Like, first of all, what a great idea that nobody's ever done before. I mean, as we say in the interview, these people are human, and it's kind of interesting to me. And now reading the book, watching the stuff on TikTok with the Tristan Casas injury, I was just listening to the radio, and they're like, "Why does this guy not do this, this, this?" And I'm like, sometimes it's people. Like, they're people with real feelings, and they can't just switch them off. So I love that. I'm really excited to read more. Also to read about what they do after baseball, because I think that's going to be really interesting especially for the stories of the people that left the sport completely. It's interesting to see like why, how, where did they come up with these ideas, and I'm super excited to see that. Still going to get into Saber too, because I definitely want to try that. But so check Zach's book out. It's on the Zon. It's on his website. I'll put it below so you can click on him and visit. Update on writing. So as I said in the last podcast, I am now a level bestie, level best books, which is super exciting. Book 3 in the Ballpark Mysteries will be my first book with them. Tentatively titled right now, Foul Play at the Park. And right now I am doing another copy. I found a copy editor on readsy.com, and she's going through one more time. It's already had one edit, but with the new publisher, I want to make sure I get it to a better place. And so that is with her right now. We're going to see what I get from there. And then I turn the book into them in September. Yes, I know, Fern, you're still here. I see you. It's because I'm waving my hand around, so she thinks it's pet time. Oh, excuse me. So next September, 2026, will be when Foul Play at the Park is released. And then, like I said, my plan is to finish book 4 this year so that I'm kind of a year ahead. And then by the time book 3 comes out, book 4 will be turned in, etc., etc., etc. So that's the plan. I did just get notice that I think I'm going to get the rights to books 1 and 2 back. So I'm going to try to figure out either putting them out on my own, or I'm going to talk to Level Best, see if we do something with them. But that's something that's coming down the pipe. So don't fret. I do also still have a lot of copies of that. So if you're still looking to buy a copy, Fern Marie, she's stepping on my computer. Yeah, looking at the camera. You're a good girl. I saw her Nana this weekend at Malice Domestic. Her owner, her foster grandmother. And she told me all the stories that she didn't tell me when I adopted Fern, like how she likes to jump off of things. And I said, yeah, that's accurate. And also that she's harness trained. I was like, when I tried to harness train her, she was not so much a harness trained cat, but whatever. So back to publishing. Stay tuned for all that stuff. In regards to upcoming events, May is a busy, busy month. So starting on May 16th, I will be at the Brockton Rocks opening day block party and game with fellow author Rosie Pease, who's been on the podcast as well. She writes baseball romances. I write baseball mysteries. What a perfect match for a baseball game, right? So come see that. There'll be fireworks after the game. There's a big party beforehand. And it's their revival season, as I talked about in the podcast. So, come support local baseball so that we can get more action going, because I love that. And then when I get my Netflix special and buy a ballpark and make a ballpark here in Abington, it won't be so weird. May 16th. So then May 19th, for any librarians listening, I will be at the Massachusetts Library Association conference as the Vice President of Sisters in Crime New England, and we want to get you to sign up for our Speakers Bureau, get authors to come to your libraries, events, stuff in the town, all that good stuff. So if you're a librarian, come say hi. And I don't know, I should give you like a code word, and then I can give you like swag, but I'll have bookmarks and all that good stuff there as well. And then May 24th, that's a busy week. May 24th, I will be back at Barnes & Noble in Hingham for their kickoff to summer event. So I will have books, I'll have bookmarks, and I will also have podcast information for people that are interested. And hopefully after that, I will have a little bit of a break, and the Red Sox will be winning, fingers crossed, and actually doing a whole lot better. And then that's it for the summer so far. So if you have something you want me to do, I'm open. hopefully I have a lot of interviews coming in from Malice Domestic. That was really fun to get to meet lots of authors. I have 2 coming up in June, so stay tuned for that. And then, yeah, that's about it. Book recommendations. See, I always forget something, and I almost forgot again. So outside of all the books I got in Malice that I always recommend, I did get a full ton of book library holds that came in this week. So the first one is Scott Lyerly's The Last Line. He is a fellow Crime Bake committee member. It's his debut novel. It's really enjoyable if you're a theater kid, cozy mystery fan. I'm intrigued to see where it goes next. So 2 thumbs up, Scott. Well done. Hopefully you'll be on the podcast too. The other book, I posted this on my Instagram today, is Who Will Remember by C.S. Harris. It is like the 20-something. I feel like I've talked about her other books before, but this is the list of the books in the series. And I own some of them, and I've read all of them, and it's just a series that I really enjoy. Also, The Lady's Road Guide to Utter Ruin, which is an ill-mannered ladies novel. I read the first one, which was, and what's her first name? The Benevolent Society of Ill-Mannered Ladies. And it's Alison Goodman. And it's just kind of, I love a good Victorian historical where there's a little romance, a little mystery, a little, zhuzh, whatever. And also strong women from the time period, because they don't usually get recognized. And then the third one is Homicide in the Indian Hills by Erica Ruth Neubauer. Another good one. It's another series that I've read all of them, and this was the most recent one that literally just came out this year. So I'm very excited about it. And Murder on the Mistletoe's in here too. It's a little side book. What do they call those? Short story novellas. Yeah, so it's both of them. Oh, I just learned that. That's exciting. So that's the one I'm going to read next after I finish Who Will Remember. So with that, go pick up books from your library because they're great. Go pick up books from your favorite local authors like me. And until next time, happy reading and go write.